Welcome, everybody. If you're here early, we'll just do a few minutes. I know folks weren't really going to tune in until 10. So we actually have a couple minutes to just sort of chit chat amongst ourselves, potentially before folks might join us. So it's episode 2 of UnTangled, a real talk for nonprofit teams, tackling tech, outreach, and strategy. I'm Jen Frazier, CEO and founder of Firefly Partners. And I'm here with Brad Caldana, president, founder, and also Chief Innovation Officer. You can tell us all about all your titles, Brad, the Center for Digital Strategy. Brad, thanks for being here. So why don't you give us a little rundown on who you are and what the Center for Digital Strategy is, and sort of kind of the changing nature of your role and some of the stuff you've been doing with nonprofits and tech over the last, 100 years or so.
Yeah, of course. Hey, and just a quick question. Am I looking at you?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
You're good.
I was just adjusting the where the camera and my desk are. So
yeah.
Cool. Who am I? What are these titles? What are we doing? All of those things. So I am Brad Caldana, founder of the Center for Digital Strategy, author of the book, The Digital Plan. And yeah, I've been working in digital strategy for nonprofits and advocacy for, well, we're heading close to the 2-decade point here, which feels...
Oh, I'm way past the 2-decade point.
I know you're past the 2-decade point.
I know that we let go. Then you just start to say, Tommy and I were talking about this last week. We just start to say, a really long time. I'm a seasoned professional. Yeah.
I mean, I like saying the 2 decades because some people are like 3 years in, like, I'm a seasoned professional.
Yeah,
like,
you're like,
are you? Yeah.
Yeah. No, we got some street cred, got some time doing the work.
Yeah. I've been in this space for a long time. I was doing freelance and video and blogging in Miami back in the early mid 2000s. And I always like to say, I'm gonna give folks the long story since we have those extra minutes.
We got extra time. Let's do it.
I took a job with the Obama campaign. I actually emailed them as they were opening their field offices, and I realized there was also an age gap between folks who know and didn't know there was a primary in 2008, and there wasn't. And so now I have to also tell this story.
Yeah.
Is those of you who don't know, there was not a primary in Florida in 2008 because the Florida Democratic Party moved their primary up to be more important. The main campaigns, being Obama and Clinton, decided not to engage in the primary because they felt that was throwing... I mean, it would have thrown off both of their strategies, right? And thrown everything up in the air. And so they're coming in for the general election. I email and they're like, we're hiring field organizers. And I'm like, okay, I've done door-to-door, fundraising in the past, like many of us. I also don't know how far this dates us as well. Like, so many folks who worked in environmental and progressive stuff, a good chunk of folks worked for the PIRGs at some point. And I don't know if there's an age pivot on that or if it's still so universal for a lot of folks. But
that might date us a little, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I always tell folks, I would have taken a job just stapling papers in a dark closet 24 hours a day, right? Like, whatever they told me, I was already in. I was like, oh,
you're like on the campaign, you're like, whatever.
Yeah, and the owner of the main travel and tourism website down in Miami at the time, who I was doing freelance work for, was like, did you not ask them about doing creative stuff? Because you're really good at that. And I was like, didn't even think about it. Don't even know if there's jobs I can get, right? And ironically, I had a conversation.
Bring your strengths. This is your message for everyone. Always like, play to your strengths. You're like, okay, right. I should do what I'm actually good at, not just
but I was good at both, right? And so I actually felt big picture lucky that I worked as a field organizer to start with, because it was actually like a core central element to how the organization thought about campaigning. And so I had this really intimate knowledge because I stuck around for another 6 years and then doing new media. And I had this one conversation with the new media director, and really their new media folks were just doing blogging and teaching people how to use MyBo, which was the online organizing platform back then. And I was like, hey, are you guys doing anything with Twitter? I know there's a national account, but I'm just curious, like on the state level. And she's like, I've never heard of Twitter. And I was like, oh yeah, like, I'm connected with a group of folks who kind of work in emerging social media, and we're on Twitter. And they were like, yeah, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, probably not that useful for politics yet, and maybe it never will be.
Oh my God, I love that. Like, oh, if only.
Yeah, yeah. So I was wrong about that. I was
So you
wrong
were
about
you were ahead of the game and maybe not quite totally there, but like so early adopter. Nicely done.
very early adopter, and I was like part of me was like, "I can see how it could be, but maybe it won't." Like, maybe it won't
Well,
grow
I
into
mean,
that,
until
like
you have the volume, it's not, right? So you're
not.
kind of like, this has potential, much
Yeah.
like a lot of stuff we're going to talk about in a minute, but like there's the potentials there, but you're like, without mass adoption, you're like, what are we doing? I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I'll give folks the flash forward. And so, folks are just joining because we're close to the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Giving a bit of my backstory. Started as a field organizer, didn't ask about new media jobs for the 2008 Obama campaign. I stuck around, worked on organizing the field for healthcare, but I was also helping all the states set up the state-based Twitter and Facebook accounts now because we flash forward just 6 months and it's like, oh, Twitter is a thing. And
That's a
like we've
thing.
passed the Oprah moment, I think, and like all of these other
Ah,
things are happening. I would say the Oprah moment in Twitter, right? Like that was like this like big
well, yeah, I was like, whoop.
the
Like,
mainstreaming, right?
yeah.
And stuck around, moved into new media at the DNC for the 2010 elections and helped found the for the 2012 states the battleground the digital strategy for the battleground states and pitched them on being the digital training director, which
Hmm.
they accepted. Unfortunately, not my whole pitch of like I'd have a whole big team, we do all this stuff, but I got to help run trainings internally for our what ended up being 200 digital staff in states.
Oh,
And then and it was a drug and out of a thing, right? There's like 200 digital folks in HQ, 200 in the states, a like 100 to 200 person tech team in HQ, and I got to help pull knowledge across all these different departments and then scale it out to folks and then help
mhm.
develop the trainings for our different tools and leaders and volunteers. And then in the end went out to Nevada to also like test my own training, right? We had
Yeah.
a change of staff there, and so went out for the last 3 months to be like, well, we'll see if I can do the thing, and we did the thing.
Awesome.
Stuck around organizing for action. A thing that really surprised me, and it kind of really is what leads us to here, is I
Yeah.
was surprised how far behind most nonprofits were on their digital strategy.
So much
We were
has
five to
changed,
ten
Brad.
years.
So much has. Oh wait.
We were 5 to 10 years behind.
Yeah.
I take a couple years later, take a job with Rainforest Action Network. I'm working with a bunch of big climate and green folks, and I'm like, oh, a lot of folks are still 5 to 10 years behind. We didn't adjust the curve, right? We didn't
Right.
collapse that time. And I jumped back out to consulting and really wanted to dig into training. And I really saw a couple things were really clear. I had been, you know, the digital training person
Yeah.
in this big organization, and I didn't have time when I was the digital director. I
Mm.
could train people in process, but we weren't taking those big pause moments to be like, oh, here's why naming conventions for Google Analytics are super important so that we can actually track conversions and things. And so, and also, a lot of knowledge ends up in agencies. And I love agencies. We need agencies, but also, right, like there's a minimum price tag, and agencies can only serve so many people, right?
Exactly.
And
You gotta get the knowledge in the hands of the folks doing the work on that.
yeah, and so I
Yeah.
wrote the book, The Digital Plan, and which I started doing trainings under that brand, and we morphed it into the Center for Digital Strategy, started hosting. But at first, we were just doing trainings and webinars and some courses. And over the years, we've launched a whole big lineup of summits. And we added in the AI summit last year. And I think this like gets us kind of right to where we
Yeah,
are now
totally.
is the 2023 I guess was the beginning of
Yeah,
chat, right? The
right.
big,
Yeah.
and I, very similar to my Twitter moment,
Early
was like,
adopter. Early adopter. Yeah.
I used it a little bit. People were all freaking out, and I'm like, we've been using AI. I don't know why everyone's freaking out. And people are like, what are
Oh,
you talking about? I'm like, every digital ad and
right.
Google search is driven by AI.
Well, I think this is part of the thing that we need to kind of unpack here a little bit, which is sort of like a lot of it right now. I would just start with like terminology. And I know
Yeah,
this is some of the basics that, like, again, when we say like very parallel, people aren't really using it. They're not quite sure, blah, blah, blah. But there is, again, this like suddenly there's this term now. Everyone's like using the letters AI, but I don't really think that people fully understand even what that means and what all the ways in which sort of AI or LLMs or other things that things get thrown around. And I think there's just a lot of obviously misinformation. But So let's unpack that just a little bit because you could spend a long time just
Yeah.
doing that. But like maybe we do a thumbnail on that. And then I really want to get into this, like some of the stuff when you came up with the idea, obviously all the trainings you've done with people where you're saying, okay, nonprofits are a little bit behind. Obviously, I still think that's true
True.
today.
Yes.
It's always and maybe going to be the case because obviously nonprofit people jump into nonprofits because they care about the work. They're not trying to be, generally speaking, technologists or like super users or powered, whatever.
Yep.
They're like, I care about the cause, I care about the work. And the tech is just, oh, right, I have to do that too. And so there's obviously a lot of accidental techies, reluctant techies, whatever. And a lot of people who are also just like, no, not doing it. And maybe at their peril,
Dagger where
oh,
my heart is,
I'm
dagger to the
not
heart.
doing it. I'm not doing it. You're like, okay, it's not going to work out, but okay. So we have obviously we very much like pushed immediately into a tech, for the last, whatever, 10, 15 years, it's been, oh, okay, this is critical. You got to get in, you got to get in. But now I think we're also hitting the space of like, it's not even like critical anymore. It is like it. Like if you're
Yeah.
not doing it, like it there, I don't even understand how you're really running an organization or a business or anything really, or just living as a person unless you're out in the woods farming and good for you. So you're living off grid and you're killing it. So crush it. But let's talk about the like you said, like the mind shift. To dig into that a little bit, like the mind shift to help nonprofits thrive with AI. So maybe just like maybe there's the thumbnail sketch of like AI and types and what do we mean by AI now that everyone's doing that. And then maybe let's start to get into the idea of like what's the mindset shift? Say that 6 times fast. And of what you're seeing, like where people are sort of turning the corner maybe and actually starting to do some early adoption and getting some like starting to see some real benefits. I know that was a big loaded question.
Yeah. Let's try to break down what we're
Break it down.
talking about. We're talking about AI real quick.
Yeah.
Is first of all, AI, we're talking about machine learning,
Right.
right? Like the simplest of it is machine learning, right? And so we had Google and all of your social media algorithms were based on machine learning, right?
Right.
They're building an algorithm that was telling them a thing. The nuanced difference, which then became clear to me, is what they're doing is the large language models, right? So that most of us, when we're thinking about AI now, we're talking about generative
Right.
AI that analyzes something for us and helps tell us something, right? Which is a little different, which is very different than what Facebook and Google are doing. And how you know that is absolutely true is that when ChatGPT and everything exploded on the scene, Google didn't just roll out their version and it was great.
Right.
They had a year and a half of awful, and it's still debatably not great. But the large language models, they essentially build these what they call neural networks, machine learning nodes, and they're actually different nodes in this generative AI doing. They're teaching them different things, right? And they're feeding them these large language models. And what does that mean? It means they scraped the internet. They scraped all of this data, all of this thing in, and now video and images to help them understand what it is that humans are doing and saying, and help predict what would be the best thing to do or say next.
Right.
And the crazy thing is, they've trained them. They don't know why the LLMs make the decisions they make. And there's actually some missing magic in there. They cannot see that process. It's an invisible process, right? They've trained this, this infant neural brain,
Right. I
and
love that. It's an infant. It is.
yeah, it's a very like
It needs to learn. It's like a sponge. It's sitting there
it,
like, yeah.
if we're trying to compare it to an organic thing, it's an
Right.
infant, right?
Right.
Which is what is scary about it, right? You're like, oh, this is your infant. I don't really want to see your adult, maybe, and that's why. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, like Grok, Elon Musk's AI is a disaster, right? Because they didn't like the outputs, which were like honest and ethical. They're like, oh, we're gonna tweak how it understands the model, and we're gonna just juice that model a little bit. But they don't know what's gonna come out the other
Right.
end because they
Right.
don't know why it's making the decisions. So they tweak it a little bit, and next thing you know, it's calling itself Mecha Hitler. If you guys missed
And you're
that
like,
last
yes,
week,
right? That
yeah,
was like,
it went full on Nazi, and
oh,
it,
I'm terrified. Yeah.
and you're like, oh well, we can kind of see how you all told it to think.
Gosh, I wonder who they were learning from.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Um,
That's another thing about like where it learns from is
yeah.
sort of what it becomes, just like an infant.
Yeah.
You learn from the environment in which you were raised and taught. So that's just like these different
Yeah.
AI generative tools, LLMs. It's like, well, that's why I think a lot of people have a lot of scariness around like where this is going, because obviously who's in charge, the,
Yeah.
questionably ethically, borderline not even questionable people, unfortunately, are in charge of a lot of this. So,
Yeah.
but there's generative. We talked last week about the difference between like generative and like agentic, and like there's different types, and then there's lots of great videos to talk about the sort of different stages of like super AIs and things like that that
Yeah. We're not there.
we're not even like
Um,
close to that yet. So we are dealing with infancy really in many ways, but even in this infancy, it's very powerful,
yeah.
and it's got a lot of potential.
And the mindset piece of it, I think,
Yeah.
the this really dawned on me. So I now offer my services as a fractional chief innovation officer.
Yeah.
And originally, a year and a half ago, I was going to say fractional chief digital strategy officer. And my
I
friend
saw
Betsy
your
Hoover,
discussion, on LinkedIn about that too, or it was an email or something like that. I was like, I'm talking about what
yeah,
it look like.
yeah.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
and my friend Betsy Hoover, one of the founders over at Higher Ground Labs, was like, "Why not innovation?" And I'm like, I really want to help people with their digital strategy. And she had been my director at Obama World, right?
Okay.
And so I think I have, in hindsight, I was like, oh, I was creating all these innovations. He's like, yes, you've been innovating for
Forever.
15
Forever.
years.
Right.
And but with the rise of AI, suddenly I was like, I see where we are in this moment, and I do think innovation makes more sense to help. And so I'm helping organizations think about how do they onboard their AI programmatically, and helping organizations rethink their digital strategy. I had put out an article in 2003 that
Oh,
was Digital 2.0, that like, oh, we've fundamentally hit a tipping point where we're going to totally like digital platform systems expectations were like they felt set in a pretty healthy way from like
right.
2015 through like 2020-ish, and by
Yeah.
2022 they like collapsed, right?
Yeah.
Like what we expected, how they worked. And as I was like starting to like have that conversation more widely, AI came in and like wrecked
Right.
the table again,
Yeah.
right? And a thing that dawned on me earlier this year, because I think still the majority of nonprofits, advocacy orgs, political campaigns struggle with digital strategy, struggle with how they onboard and do digital. And one of the things that dawned on me is like, oh, it is innovation. They're missing what I call an innovation mindset.
Yeah.
And what that means is not like, oh, you have to go out there and make a new thing and do a whatever. But I think most organizations approached digital social media as an add on. How do we add this to what we are doing? An innovation mindset would have said, how are we adapting what we are as an organization to use digital?
Yeah.
And that wasn't what happened, right? And so I also kind of introduced this term earlier this year of like what I think of as a modern organization. And so a lot of folks were saying digital first, and I think digital first only makes sense to their organizations that are truly digital organizations
Right.
first.
Right.
And that's awesome. But if you're doing in-person
Yeah.
services, if you're a food bank, you do have people whose jobs will be pretty undigital, right? And so that doesn't
A
make
lot
sense
of
for.
them, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so what I think of is a modern organization. Are
Mm.
you appropriately structured in thinking about people's workflows? And are you leveraging and investing in leveraging and adapting digital tools and technology?
Yeah. I mean,
And,
really,
and
are you thinking? But it's also to me what I'm totally with you. And I think the other thing I'm starting to see is it's because we've been such a digital marketing and digital engagement, and that's been our, sweet spot forever. It's obviously bigger than that. So then you think
yeah,
about other ways across your organizations, just operations, like all of it. So you have to actually kind of go, this is obviously the use of AI in different ways is much bigger than just how I might come in and say, hey, I'm going to help you think about how we can make it more efficient in your engagement, or helping you analyze your data or look at your segments or these types of things. So it's like, okay, yes. And that's like this little piece of what you do as an organization. And you need to be thinking about every little, slice of your pie of the organization as a modern, again, it's not digital first necessarily, but how are we using the appropriate, or the available tools appropriately to create, more efficiencies and things like that within our organization instead of doing all the like manual this and that, whatever. Let's really think about, are we more modern? Because there are more options available to you than doing like a triplicate form on a mimeograph, okay, or whatever. You have to be like, how are we taking this forward across? Again, you and I mostly have been focused in that digital engagement outreach space, but it is these tools. My big, things right now are like, I'm not maybe the team or the person to do that, but there's a lot around the whole organization that could use some auditing and some like efficiency gaining. But the mindset too is, like, thing Tommy and I talked about last week, which we can bounce off of, is sort of the idea too, where it's not like, oh, we're gonna suddenly replace, all these jobs. I think it's, again, the like, how are we using the available tools appropriately to enhance or sort of change a little bit even of what we're doing, or sort of like it can help, because the best machine we have is still inside here, and we still only use like, a fraction of the capabilities, because I do think a lot of times the way we've created systems for the last billion years has been very manual, very rudimentary, again, and like not allowing us to free up our real potential of our brains. So right now, you can almost think of AI and tools that we have as helping to like, free you up and free different people up inside your organization to really tap into the creativity and the thinking and the innovation that's possible, and let some of the machine learning, tools out there take care of some stuff that's a little bit more rudimentary. And this is, again, like, I think just a way for people to dip their toe into starting to use it, because again, the potential of the tools is, I think right now, probably almost beyond what a lot of us can even like sit and think about and comprehend. But it's, again, like a lot of what I hear is like, how do we even get started? What do I even do? Like, I don't even, like, I don't quite understand it. B, I really don't understand how to get started. So that might be ways we could give some advice to listeners. We've talked a lot about the big picture stuff, but bringing it in. So there's a mindset shift, how to be more modern. I don't know if you have thoughts or the ways you're already working, even in that innovation capacity. Coming up a lot.
Yeah, two pretty easy, kind of like low hanging ways that I think about this is, number one, this was my aha and into because I signed up for ChatGPT early on, and I was like, I don't know, like I try to do some prompting. So if you've heard the term prompting, just means the questions you ask generative AI to get out the thing that you supposedly want.
Right.
And it doesn't always go well because if you're not used to using it, it's tricky to know what to ask.
Exactly.
And because it's an infant, it doesn't always give you what you want, or it doesn't always lead you in the right direction. I can kind of give a couple of examples, but the direction it did lead me in that was great was a friend who had ADHD. And at the time, I had recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and which it turns out a bunch of folks in digital strategy have ADHD. In my mind, I like, oh, ADHD is the neurodivergent superpower of folks in the digital marketing creative side to what I think folks on the autism spectrum are in the developer and coding side and data side, right? It's like we both have these superpowers, right? For this like new era, and it's awesome. And she was like, I use it to help kickstart email drafts because, right, I'm super creative and do all these things, but I have that paralysis that folks often have. But I think this is true even for folks who don't have ADHD, right? You're like, oh, you're not normally working in email. And so, at first what I would do is I would take all the body copy from a Google Drive that I had, doc that I had used to create a landing page. And I was like, hey, draft me a marketing email for this. And it spit out a great first draft. I went in, I cleaned up the language. I didn't like how it said some things, right? But it saved me an hour. One of the early kind of movers in the space for progressives and nonprofits was a company called Quiller, which was really doing email for political campaigns.
Okay.
And that was kind of their take is they let people put in all their talking points and all these other things, and it's like, oh, draft me a fundraising appeal like around my environmental stance because of this thing. It would spit out an amazing first draft, and they were pretty quickly like campaigns that adopted it were saving hours a week.
Yeah.
Hours, right? And so it's like, oh, we're not giving it all the power, but we're taking some of the redundant task
Mm.
stuff out of this, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that I thought was pretty amazing, and obviously there's some steps to your digital strategy, but all the content you create should be written for a distinct audience. And a lot of organizations still don't do this, right? And they don't have their audience. I want to say archetype. That's not right. User.
Well, they don't have the various audiences, yeah, the segments. Yeah.
Yeah, and not even segment, but persona, user or audience persona.
Oh, uh-huh.
And it can be complicated to a lot of folks kind of get stuck in the like, oh, we don't have the money to have a marketing firm figure out an audience persona for us. And I was working with a group, and I was like, well, let's try using chat and see. We're asked, give me an audience persona. Can I just do this live? Can we just do it live? Can I share my screen here?
I think, yeah, I should just do it. Let's give it a go.
Share screen.
I'll tell you if I
So
can.
I'm using Change Agent here, which I've not done it here in Change Agent specifically, but I've done it in ChatGPT. Where did my share
I
go
had
away?
you, and
Oh,
then
it's so weird because it says I'm still sharing.
that's weird. I
Let
haven't
me
done
try it
that.
again.
So I haven't tried to share in this format. Let's see. It says, yeah. I mean, now it looks like we should be seeing the screen, but then I don't see it. That's weird.
There we go.
Okay, there it is. Okay.
I clicked some view tab thing 5 times and I clicked my heels.
You know what?
So I'm using Change Agent here, which is a more progressive, which
Yeah.
is a progressive company and a pretty good one-to-one replacement typically for ChatGPT.
Right.
And let's create a user persona for upper middle class donors in the Metro DC area who actually, let's even just change this. Just call this Arlington. In Arlington, because it's a little different. Metro DC is pretty big, but maybe I'm just running a food bank. Arlington, Virginia, who gives to food banks and is, college educated. Because we know that's like, oh, this is like a lot, your fundraising people probably know this. They probably have a good sense of like who their main donors are, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
we're user persona, right, is a pretty standard thing
Right.
in digital marketing.
Right.
And what a user persona is, it's going to tell us about their interest, kind of, things that they normally do. And of course, I don't know why this is hung up.
Of course it is, because you're trying to show us something in real
Trying
time.
to do something live.
Because
Yeah.
actually, this is the number one thing that happens when you try to do something live. It's like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm sure the Change Agent people are going to be like, seriously, our tool works great.
Yeah. No, the
We
tool's
know
amazing.
them. They're good people. This is a great tool. I don't know.
It could be that we're trying to
You know,
do that.
yesterday my ChatGPT also like flipped out and like wouldn't work. So,
Yeah. Here, I'll just show you one I popped up over here also in ChatGPT, unfortunately. User persona. So actually, it gave me one here. It gave me a name. I don't love using names, but
I know.
person's probably, often married. They have a household income of this, master's degree. Their motivations, wants to give when they can see results and know it helps the neighbors. Gives to direct service orgs. Teaches
Love
their
it.
kids about giving,
Yeah.
giving behavior. And so the user persona, right, is to help you think about how do I craft content that works to this person. But what you can also do is once you have a user persona, whether you've built it in chat or in something like Change Agent, you can then ask it to craft the email about the landing page targeting that person.
Exactly.
And now it's thinking even more smartly, right?
Yeah.
And helping you kind of craft that email in a better way, right? And so
Yeah.
those are just some kind of, to me, some low hanging ways you can use it.
The generative AI, for
The
sure.
generative AI. Yep.
Yeah, just sort of go, okay, great. This is like workflows. So we've been talking about this too, like where can we start, summarize. The other thing is obviously the big saver that, I think most people are I'm seeing the adoption pretty good is summarizing your internal meetings or meetings with, different departments or other partners or whatever. He takes notes, summarizes to
Oh
do,
yeah, yeah.
take the note taker, out of it. That's like the most basic and easy thing. So if folks aren't doing that like all day, every day, get a Fireflies, an Otter, whatever, Fathom, something that will listen and transcribe and give you like very quick to-dos, next steps, all these things that you're like, oh, that's like a huge time saver. And it's just more accurate, does the work of a person and lets everybody participate in the meeting too. So no one's trying to be like frantically over there, like, Rrr. And then you can, what I'm really excited about is then taking those notes in and then saying, great, like help craft all the sort of to-dos and things from that. You can have it then help you create those next steps and plans, or like then the sort of, again, like you just said, it's like the meta use of the AI on top of the AI. You take this, you feed it back in and say, great, now that you've got these meeting notes, help me create like the next step plans for, whatever committee you're in, whatever, planning thing you're on, things like that. It can then sort of generate agendas and next steps and working plans for subcommittees or groups and things like that that people are working on. So it's like not just the note taker. Like you then have to go, okay, great, help me think about that next step. And obviously, let's just be clear, the humans are very much involved in looking over, revising, editing, all these different things of whatever your infant is spitting back out at you. And we do use chat. I use Claude. I like Change Agent. I haven't like used it as extensively, but I have, excitement around a more progressive base, because back to the idea of how your infant is learning, large language models in there are just trying to take up some of the inherent biases and things like that are in just, the internet that chat and others are scraping from. So it's worth looking into those kinds of things, like where's the root of the tools that you're using. That's been obviously a big discussion for a million years too, is who owns the tech that we all use. The Change Agent people are, more from the progressive space. So we want to, support those tools and models and companies more than maybe like OpenAI and I don't know. So, that's a whole other conversation about the politics and the ethics behind the tools themselves. But yeah, so let's recap. I know we're running out of time. We're getting to the bottom of the hour. So thank you so much for the history. Thanks so much for the talk about AI and tools. And I like the live learning for folks to sort of see like, hey, here's how you can actually just use some of the tools, start to think about how to not be worried about maybe AI taking over the planet and the robots are coming for my job, and really just sort of say, I need to have a mindset shift and thinking about it across the organization, not just in your sort of digital outreach and strategies. That's a good place to start, because it's also where we, Brad and I and others that I, interact with all the time. That's our space where we live, but it can and should be impacting and creating some efficiencies across your whole organization. So thanks so much, Brad, for joining me today. I'm sure we could, as we know, we could talk about these things forever. Tell me more about where folks can find you.
Yeah, Center for Digital Strategy. And yeah, right now, a couple of ways folks can engage. We actually have an AI for Nonprofits and Advocacy Summit coming up starting July 29th. It'll be 4 days, sessions, across the spectrum from beginner to folks who are kind of already working in AI and how can they leverage other things to make their workflows better, right? From creative to, how are we impacting video work to, how are we just managing data better, and a whole variety of things. And we're also kicking off an AI cohort that'll start in the first session will be the middle of August.
Great.
And you can still register now and register your team. We're going to work folks through everything from the foundational stuff to a whole bunch of tactical sessions where folks can dig in and do live learning on a variety of processes, and sessions on like, how do you talk to leadership? How do you talk to partners about AI? And so really giving folks a holistic grounding and strategy for AI moving forward.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Next week, we'll be having another episode of UnTangled here again at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. I'll be joined by Anna Hetzel, the founder and worker owner of Strange Birch, which is a messaging agency working with mission-driven organizations. And we're going to talk about how to be brave with your messaging, even when everything is terrifying, which is a topic that I know lots of people are really concerned about right now, how to stay true to your mission, keep talking about the work that you're doing and doing it in a thoughtful way, even when it feels like it's scary to be honest and open about some of the work that folks are doing in the world. So I'm excited for that session. And Brad, again, thanks so much. And everyone who's got questions and thoughts about AI and how to use it, you know how to get in touch with me at Firefly Partners. You know how to get in touch with Brad. We'll see you here next week. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen.